Okay, friends and neighbors, we've got a Peavey Triumph 60 here. This is a customer's. I already checked it, it doesn't turn on. He told me it wouldn't come off a standby, but it doesn't even turn on for me, so yeah. Alright, so we got a lot of dirt. We got some tubes in there. We've got the DIN connector for the foot switches all jacked. Hum balance I would think would be in the middle, but it doesn't. Looks like it's pretty off to the side. That's usually not always a good thing. It might just be the nature of the pot though. And the foot switch, which is kind of required to make all the channels work, it's janked up on that side and it's pretty janked up on this side. So let's just start by checking to make sure our tubes aren't rubbish, and then we'll pull this out and see if the fuse is blown or what. Okay, so I'll spare you the boring watching the test tube or the tube tester flash some lights. The tube's passed the test. Started checking fuses. This is a 1 amp fuse. It doesn't look blown. It really doesn't look blown, but it is not conducting. So the diodes next to it did pass their check. Again, I haven't pulled the schematic. I'm not going in depth, but at this point we got an out fuse there. So let's deal with that, and then let's try to creep this up on the variac. Okay, so the fuse was obviously the reason that it wasn't starting to light up, because the light's coming on now. Anyway, if I put my hand over it so the light from the shop isn't getting into it, so it's trying to turn on. I've only got about 40 volts on it at this point. Okay, friends and neighbors, we got a holy snowball going on here. Checking down here at that side of that resistor, I've got like 400 volts, and on the other side I got 200 and something or other. Then you come to the next one, and on one side you got a couple hundred volts, and on the other side you got 0. So a couple of them resistors are open for sure. These caps sitting up off the board and rocking indicate to me that they're trying to explode, as opposed to they're actually happy and healthy. So I think we're going to have to pull this power supply board and start checking components. Okay, I think I changed those resistors in vain. It was strange that I couldn't ohm them out with my ohm meter. You got to lift one side. And the other thing that was confusing is these caps rocked a little bit. It's because they're not glued down. Somebody changed these. Fork it. I just electrocuted myself. I'll have to bleep that in post. Yeah, I'm connected to ground via my cable, and I just touched something. That was dumb. And the negative of that capacitor, which is probably on a negative rail, so great, that was nice. Okay, kids, don't poke things in your amplifier when it's turned on. So anyway, we have high voltage comes in here. This, by default, these yellow wires look to me like a transformer winding, and they're not. One is an out, and the out goes up to a big fat old resistor there. It's a dropping resistor to drop high voltage, and then it comes back. And of course there was a busted solder joint on that high voltage, so the high voltage wasn't coming back. So that's why my voltages look like crap around those resistors. So now that that's corrected, the amp will, you see the green light there, it does come off standby, and it does make sound now. Now these Peaveys are stuck to the ultra high gain channel unless you're using the foot switch, and we saw the foot switch was pretty mangled up, and the connector, which we can't see because it's apparently too dark. There we go. Come on, camera, you can do it. Do something. Anyway, that foot switch connector is mangled, and I do have a replacement, so we're going to replace that. I do have the DIN connector. Let's see, I have both parts because I've worked on these Peaveys before. That's the part that goes on the foot switch, and that's the part that goes into the amplifier. So, hooray. You got a free electrical shock and a curse word out of me. Lucky you. Okay, so I got that foot switch button jack thing changed. Now we got to deal with the foot switch itself. These things by default are in this ultra gain mode, so unless you're playing hair metal, the amp is kind of useless for anything else until you have the foot switch and it works. So I think this mess is more or less done, other than like cleaning the pots and cleaning the unit off. So we'll focus our attention on the foot switch. Okay, so since the cable was mangled about an inch from where the jack goes in, I'm just shortening it up by about 4 inches. I brought in some fresh unmangled cable, and there's the, you know, what I snipped. So our new cable is going to be, I don't know, 4 inches shorter, maybe something like that. Like I say, we're going to lose about 6-8 inches on this cable total, but that should be fine. They put a long foot strap, so basically I'm just going to follow the pattern here and line up the colors and change the wires. Okay, so I got the cord changed down here. Those of you who question the presence of electrical tape, the solder connection is on the bottom side of that board, which is glued to the foot switch. So I'm not going to go get the heat gun and melt the hot glue and pull it off and go to... Give me a break. It's low voltage and ain't going to hurt nothing. So I soldered the connection and then I wrapped it in electrical tape. Oh, I could have used shrink wrap. Yeah, just cry me a river. So that's changed. And then on this side, we were missing a nut down there so that could float. So I found a nut, same one that a regular stomp box uses. Okay, so new end on there. That was like no fun. Tiny, tiny soldering pins. Wire that the insulation likes to melt. You know, the enjoyable stuff. Okay, so the foot switch is happy. We have crunch channel, ultra gain channel, and clean channel. Yeah, that's all different types of noise. And then reverb does click on and off, but we need to check to see if that makes noise. So let's see, the reverb connector is over here. Yeah, I can get my fingies on it. Let's turn up the master for the reverb. And it's allegedly off. Okay, now let's turn it on. I can already hear noise. Oh yeah, that's on too much. The noise from my fingies is too loud for it. So, alright, so I did an okay job on the switch. That's working. I figure I'll put a guitar through it and make sure it doesn't sound like complete and total trash. And then we just have to do some physical cleanup. Our volume is like all the way down. Knock knock, who's there? Microphonic tube. Oh well. Okay, so our replacement tube doesn't go ding ding. That's good. I did check the channels with the guitar. They sound fine, but particularly this crunch gain, these two pots are filthy. But outside of that, everything's working. Sounds fine. We haven't really checked the reverb because I don't have the pan plugged in, but I know the circuit works. Like 1.5 out of 10. These things are insanely loud. This is not my first adventure with fixing a Triumph. They are very, very freaking loud, and that's just how they are. But it's working good now, so hooray.